So we did this Springfield Business Journal interview the other day. They heard that we were launching Original Leadership, and we're also working on this other thing, a marriage app, and they wanted to interview us about those things. And so I thought it'd be valuable to, here, actually, I got the article right here. I thought it'd be valuable to talk a little bit about what does it look like and feel like. See, there's me on page 3, to talk about what does it feel like to have an interview like that and get public exposure and that kind of thing. And when I was first starting with this whole thing, meaning like entrepreneurship, whatever else, the limelight was very attractive to me. I craved it. I wanted, because there was this sense that if people were paying attention to what I was doing, it meant like that something was right about what I was doing, and it kind of helped feed my fear of, fight against my fear that I was actually going to screw everything up, which ironically I did, even though I got quite a bit of attention early on. And now it's absolutely unnecessary for me at all. In fact, I have a certain degree of shyness because I've just come to recognize, when you're starting things out, the last thing you want in some way is a bunch of attention on it, because that's whenever everything looks the worst and it's the ugliest, and you're just figuring things out and kind of bringing it all together. And in our own vanity, we really want to look awesome, right? And so it really is an act of will to be like, okay, we're going to let people in. We're just going to share our hearts and talk about why we're doing this. And in the humility of the reality, we don't know whether it's going to be successful or not. And so I have a certain degree of shyness about public eyes on things, even more established, like with Classy Llama, the other company that we have, one of the other companies we have, it's very established and very successful. And even having eyes on that, I'm like, can we stay under the radar? But I recognize that if our passion is to reach people and connect the value that we really are confident of, we've experienced the transformational power of what we're sharing. I've seen it and experienced it myself. I've seen it in others around me. And I've also seen the dearth of that kind of transformation in the world around me. And I want it for more people. That it means that I kind of have to surrender to being a spokesperson for it. And so I'm willing to do that. But it really is an act of surrender on my part to step into the limelight and speak to something like this and be willing to open up our doors to those that are interested in what we're doing. And so it's no longer like when I see myself, someone brought in is like, wow, page 3, it does not hit me that way at all. It's like, okay, I hope this does some good, right? That's all I care about. I just want to be effective, and I want to see the mission realized. And it means nothing at all to me on page 3. In fact, probably it's more like, well, I sure hope I don't screw this up now. There's that potential fear there of we are way early in this to be getting attention on this. But anyway, I just want to let you guys into that because you might have experienced that attention and having news on you and whatever else is this really attractive thing, and maybe you're going out and wanting to find that limelight in that same way. But what I've experienced is that only if there's a compelling reason should you do that, right? Go low and slow. And let the attention come when it's time, and check yourself. If you're ever feeling like this really feels good or validates me in some way, check yourself, because that could be pride operating, that could be vanity operating there, and that doesn't do any good for anybody if that's inside of you. So anyway, that's my experience. It's a way that I've actually been transformed and changed through this journey, and all that I hope for is that the news attention on what we're doing just multiplies the value that we're creating in this world. Hey folks, so Kyle Boaz here is interviewing me from the Springfield Business Journal, and we thought I might say something really stupid and we wanted to catch it on camera, so that's why we're recording today. So, okay, Kyle, take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sitting down with us today. We appreciate it. So I guess the first question we have for you is, where did the idea for Original Leadership come from?
Well, I have been on my own personal journey for a long time of kind of developing as an entrepreneur, and then realizing that meant I needed to develop as a leader as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is true of me is I'm constantly looking for ways to multiply the value that I personally experience. Mm-hmm. And so whenever my wife and I were getting into permaculture and like learning that, developing that, we said, how can we create kits that can help other people get started with this and publish content to help them get going with it, right? So right in the same vein, whenever learning all this about leadership and growing as a leader, I'm thinking, how can I multiply the value of that by sharing it with others? And so that's really the origin of it, has been my own personal journey. And then I think secondly, seeing what's missing, the gaps that are out there, and the just the way the culture is moving. I feel like there's a general miss on what it means to be a leader culturally. And so that is something that I want to create some contrary pressure against. And so just that feeling of like, man, there's something missing culturally, as well as, wow, I've experienced so much value myself for my own journey and doing things differently than what I've seen done and leading differently than how I've seen happen, in traditional organizations. I think those two together has really compelled me to do something about it, create a kind of a rallying cry and a brand and a community that champions and celebrates a very kind of upside down approach to leadership than what's traditionally done.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, I had seen that, looking at some of the videos and going on the website, there's some, I don't know if they're buzzwords or buzz phrases like leadership community and the true expression of leadership. Mm-hmm. So using that phrase, that true expression of leadership, mm-hmm. what does that mean, I guess, to you personally and to the company itself?
Yeah. So I mean, we believe that we are designed on purpose, that leadership has a true north to it, right? There's an objective value of leadership, that a pure expression of it. And from my own experience, that's been from a Christian worldview. And so I'm pivoting from, what is the example and the way that God leads, specifically, what is the example that Jesus sets in how he leads. And those are my reference points that I've learned what I've learned about how to have that upside down leadership. Jesus did about everything opposite to what's kind of standard in the leadership books, and that he led from underneath, and had that servant mindset and poured into those that were directly around him, and he wasn't going around saying, I am the Son of God, you should believe in me. It was just, he talked to himself about the Son of Man. It was like the opposite. And so there's so many things that are upside down, and as I've expressed those values and those ways of flowing in leading my team and even leading myself, I've experienced, one, so much better results, and two, just a more gratifying life overall. It's just felt fuller and more purposeful than anything I experienced when I was pining away trying to do things the conventional way. Gotcha. So I think that the true expression of leadership is really, for me, is pivoting back from, where do we come from? And what's that objective expression of leadership? I want the real thing. I want authenticity, and the only way we can know what's authentic is to know where, know the source. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm constantly pivoting from and coming, and drawing from. And for folks that don't connect with, don't have a Christian worldview or whatever, the cool thing is the principles that I've learned by operating that context can still be applied, and frankly, they still work whether or not you agree with the source of those things. The principles still play out and still work.
Okay, excellent. So I guess this original leadership, you're talking about leading yourself from within. So how are you teaching, the members, the people that you're connecting with, how are you teaching them to lead themselves from within?
Well, we say the first team you have to lead is yourself, right? So there's a lot of things that get out of whack internally, just because of how we grow up, the different influences we have in our lives. There's so many things that create what we call incoherence inside of us, which, as an example, it would be when I was growing up, one of the things that I attached myself to was a lie that I'm all I've got and I can only depend on myself, right? And that lie drove me to do all kinds of really stupid things, right? Because when you agree to something that's not true, you still act like it's true. You're operating as if it's true. And whenever we operate from these lies like they're true, there's just a dissonance with kind of the natural order of things. There's a friction that it creates that slows things down, breaks things, whatever else. And so what I've experienced myself is that the more I kind of dig down to what's causing me to show up in this way that really isn't true to who I am? For me to lash out in anger, or for me to want to cheat, or for me to want to, abuse other people or abuse myself or whatever. What's causing those tendencies? And I found that if I dug deep enough, if I kept asking why, I'd figure out the root causes of it, and it's always been attached to a lie of some sort. And so breaking agreement with that lie, coming into agreement with the truth that replaced it, and then really intentionally operating according to that truth, what ended up happening is they just started to develop greater and greater degrees of what I call coherence, this like inner peace of all the parts are working together, right? They're flowing together, and learning to build a relationship with my heart was really important, of like, hey, honoring the feelings. Hey, these feelings matter. They're data, right? It's important to know, what am I feeling? Doesn't mean I'm going to submit to my heart. Doesn't mean I'm going to let my heart rule me. But I'm going to listen to it. And same thing with my mind. I used to let my mind control. If it doesn't make sense, it's out, right? And I was very, very much like rationally driven, and the world is X, Y, and Z dimensions and whatever else. And so that was also important, learning to go, it doesn't have to make sense for it to be true all the time. Something may not make immediate sense to me. I may not understand it rationally, but it still is the way I'm going to go. So it was almost like giving some balance to intuition versus just data and rationalism. And what I discovered is that things don't always make sense right away that are right, but you flow according to those things, and then you end up going, oh, now I can see, now that I've experienced it and walked in it, oh, now it makes perfect sense. There was no way I could have seen it without walking through it, right? And so again, can't let the mind control you. And in the same vein, the body wants what feels good physically, and what doesn't feel good, it wants to avoid pain physically. And so you can't be controlled by that either, but you still need to listen to those things, right? They're reflective, they're data. And so you're listening to all these parts, and they have contrary desires, and it's almost like, it is like a team. It's like you're leading a team. I think that we are plural beings, that we actually have these different parts to us that we need to lead effectively and get them all working together so that we can all move in the same direction. And then the cool thing is, when you learn to lead yourself that way, then when you lead others, you're just training, equipping, and mentoring others to do that for themselves, right? You want to get them leading themselves effectively. And because if they're doing that, you no longer have to motivate them, because there's something inside of them. There's a coherence there. The blocks are coming out of the way. I think most of leadership is really just unleashing what's true in a person, and disassembling or breaking down what's false in them. And if you do those things, then naturally good things are going to flow out of that person. So that's really the process of kind of leading from within, is let's get the team inside of you working well together and get you in a position where you're truly leading all the parts of you, and not being dominated and controlled by the different parts. So that's just some texture to what that process looks like.
Yeah, it sounds like getting everything internally working together, building towards that aha moment, basically. Okay.
There are certainly aha moments along the way. Yep.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
Okay. So can you touch on the core values a little bit? I saw that there's 3 core values for original leadership. So how did you establish that those were the 3 most important things for this organization?
Well, we knew we needed to express some core values, and so I sat down and I wrote down 3 core values that seemed pretty good to me, and that's why we said on the when we expressed those, we're like, these might change because we're just early learning. Yeah. But now you're putting me on the spot, because I literally sat down and wrote those down in a moment. So the core value first core value was original alignment. So that's the cornerstone value. That is critically important, because nothing makes sense to me if it's not rooted and founded in an origin.
Okay.
Right? In the same way as a fork wouldn't make sense to anybody if there was no origin to the fork.
Oh, that's
right?
Yeah. You made that comment at the 90 Ideas. 90
right.
minutes.
I use that analogy quite frequently, because people can relate to that really easily. Of if we don't know where the fork came from, we don't know what the fork is, we don't know why it exists, and we don't know how to measure its success. Same is true of humans. Same is true as of anything. Right. You got to go to source. You got to go to the origin to know who a thing is, what or who a thing is, why it is, and how to measure its success. And so original alignment is key for those reasons. I know we had another value related to relationships, healthy relationship. I think it might have been a real relationship. And that's just, I don't know. I mean, that has always been core to what it means to lead effectively. That we keep coming back to, at the end of the day, we grow by operating a relationship with others, and we also are most effective when we're connected to others. I believe there is all kinds of evidence that the origin of all things, that there is a prioritization of being connected together, that people were designed to be connected to each other, and that when we connect together, in kind of like standard thoughts, we talk about the power of team, right? That's really just reinforcing that there's value when we come together, but in order to come together and work together, you have to be able to relate effectively to each other. And I personally believe that if we have an objective to consistently grow deeper relationships with people around us, that we're going to continue to develop in health and to become better leaders ourselves, to become fuller people. So that's important. So that's 2 of 5. Honor is another important one. Honor is, I've learned a lot about what it means to honor others. We landed on that simply because I started out wanting other people to think and act like I did, and thinking the world would be awesome if everyone thought and acted like I did. Yeah. And then I got married.
And then that changed.
And the funny thing is, my wife and I are actually crazy similar in so many ways. When we take any of the personality profiles like StrengthsFinders or Enneagram, we are so close to the same, and yet there are very key fundamental differences between us. But in any case, there's a lot of truth to that marriage really helped me understand that it is not just okay, it is necessary for other people to be different than me. And it's not just marriage, because early on, I started recognizing, man, if I were the visionary person that I am, if I were alone on a desert island, I would die. Like, I'd come up with some great ideas, but I'd die because I couldn't get them, couldn't implement them and make them all happen. And so honor is looking at those that are different. That it's like that embracing of diversity, right? It's looking at people that are different and going, there's value to be had here. There's what can I learn from you, and what do you have that I need, that I'm not really, that I'm not capable of doing, that I can't bring to life something without what you have. And when we start looking at each other, differences as essential to success instead of looking at them as like impediments to our progress, which is how I used to think of it, that's when so much gets unlocked, so much effectiveness, so much opportunity gets unlocked. You see it, I see it in just about any context right now. It politically would be one of the most powerful examples of how opposing forces like want to kill each other, right? As opposed to, like, I actually rewrote the Republican platform. In 2016, I rewrote the entire platform, Republican Party platform. I didn't ever actually I was at the state convention, or I can't remember which convention, but I didn't put it up to actually be adopted because I knew that I would have probably been crucified. But I put up an entire replacement. Why? Because 50% of the content in there was actually throwing bombshells at the the Democratic Party. And you read the Democratic Party's platform, it's the same thing. And I'm like, whoa, like, can we reset here? Can we operate from values? Because the truth is, both sides hold and carry really good values. And if we pivot from values in coming together and talk about the good values we both carry, then the question doesn't become, how can we destroy the other side and beat them? The question becomes, how do we embrace both values that we separately champion, that are both good, and how can we accomplish all the values in this set of circumstances, be it a wall between us and Mexico, or be it whatever other thing we've got that's hot in the moment, right? And so that's just, those are examples of why honor is so important and why it's so badly needed in our culture, and why we are driving that. We want to demonstrate that, how great things happen when people of different perspectives, different strengths, bless and honor the differences and the differing strengths in others as essential to being effective together. And that's honor. There's two more I know that I mentioned. I should have shortened the list so I could remember them all. But I'm struggling to remember the other two. Jeremy, do you remember what? Powerful living. So powerful living is a value that we hold in this kind of umbrella organization we call OrigiNation, which is kind of a covering for all the different things we have going on the business front. But powerful living it's pivoting from the belief that every person is free to choose. Okay. And if we're free to choose, then we're also responsible for our choices. Mm-hmm. And responsible means that we're able to respond well to the circumstances that we have. It's very much in the word, responsible, able to respond well, right? And so that means that when we are responding to the circumstances are occurring around us, and in some way they're happening to us, but we also get to happen to the circumstances. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I see patterns of people that are letting things happen to them, and they're saying, it wasn't my fault, you made me feel this way, you made me respond this way, it wasn't my choice, right? And as a child, I think there's truth to that, right? There's a certain degree of innocence and vulnerability there that is just native to being a child. Mm-hmm. But as we become an adult, that's when we transition. That's one of I think the hallmarks of becoming an adult is, I am now free to choose. I will take responsibility for the choices that I make, and I get to happen to the circumstances around me. And that's something we really want to reinforce for people is you are designed to be powerful. It's powerful to be able to happen to the world around you and shape your circumstances to some degree by responding to them, not just reacting to them. And that's powerful living. That's I'll just stop there. That's a good summary of powerful living. And then, you remember the last one, Jeremy? Oh, well, that's right. Coherence. We said team coherence. So coherence is what we already talked about when you're saying leading from within. It's true for the team inside, and it's also true for teams, that are operating in the more traditional sense of the word team. Mm-hmm. But we are big on, hey, you've got to be together before you can move forward, right? And I've made this mistake so many times in my leadership I'm so blaze ahead. When I get a vision, I'm like, oh, I want that thing so badly. I see it. I know the world's going to be better for this thing. And so I'm like, boom, after it. But the problem is I leave people behind me, and then we go back to what I've already said. People are essential. Their different strengths are essential. And if I'm alone on a desert island, I'm going to die, right? Same thing. If I'm alone in my pursuit of this vision, it's going to die. And I've killed a lot of visions going after it that way. And the world has not experienced a lot of really good things because I messed up on that point. Mm-hmm. And so team coherence is critical, and you've got to stay connected to the people around you in order to be effective. And so part of that is, the real relationship, the powerful living, whatever else. Those are the pieces and constituents and the chemistry that makes team coherence even possible. And so that's big. Hey, we need to learn how we can connect with people around us and stay connected as teams. Because without that unity, progress will be stultified. It will be held back. It will be stunted. And so that's essential. So those, we got through it. Those are the 5 core values so far as our candidate core values that are subject to change. And subject to being forgotten, obviously. Yes.
So I think that's kind of a good place. In one of the videos, talking about those core values, you mentioned in one of them, counterfeit leadership. Yeah. So what does counterfeit leadership look like? After you're describing these core values and everything you're going after, what is this counterfeit leadership?
So counterfeit means anything that isn't the real thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I actually believe that we're all a little counterfeit. Because we're at least a little deviant from the way things really are. Nobody's perfect is another way of saying that, right? Which another way is we're all a little counterfeit, right? If there is a true north, then everybody's deviant in some ways from that true north, right? We're all, my hope and my desire, my invitation for people is let's all pursue true north together instead of this relativistic thing of, hey, everyone just decide whatever your true north is and any direction can be true north. Not only do I think that is completely irrational, but I think it's extremely dangerous culturally, and I think the results and the impact that it will have on our society are very damaging and very dangerous, and they just don't work. Because if you step into that mode, that relativistic mentality, you can't even hold Hitler accountable.
Yeah, because he was going towards his true north, technically.
He defined a true north, and he really believed that true north, and he operated from it, and he said, this is true. Now, if you don't believe there is a true north, then you can't identify the deviance that he operated from that. That's the danger of relativism, is anybody can get away with anything, and then you'll start falling back on ideas like utilitarianism and social contract and whatever else in order to try to make something, a semblance of solid. But the problem is, like, social contract worked in Germany. Like, everyone was kind of okay. Like, they were flowing with it. They wanted that nationalism and that, that ethnic orientation to their nationalism, and to the exclusion of others and the abuse of others. So, that doesn't work either. So there's no real true north, and without a true north in a relativistic context, there's no solid ground, and it's just super dangerous, and it just does not work. So we come back to, I'm trying to bring this back to the original question. Remind me what the original question was.
Oh, just about counterfeit leadership.
So so anything that you have to believe in an objective value for anything to be counterfeit. The ironic thing is, if there is no true north, then everything is counterfeit. Everything is made up. Everything is contrived, right? I don't believe that people have the authority to make up who they are. There's a lot of language out there like, you can decide who you want to be. Just decide who you want to be and then make yourself into it. Basically, the thing, craft your own image of what you want to be. And I'm like, images are fake. It's a facade. Like, that's what you're doing, is you're crafting an image of who you are with a vacuum behind it. There's no true identity behind it. You just crafted something that isn't even true. You're not an artisan of your identity. You're a discoverer. You're an explorer and a discoverer of your identity. And so that's what I'm calling for people to recognize, is that we have a true north, and we have the opportunity to discover something true about us. I think it's what in the heart of every human is the desire to know and be who they really are. And this language and this drive culturally to tell people that they don't actually have a true identity and there's nothing to discover there, I think is a significant contributor to the devaluation of human life that's happening culturally, to the violence that's occurring, to the suicide rates that continue to grow up. I just saw a study that, since they've been measuring it, there's not been a higher rate of suicide per 100,000 in the last, since they've been studying in the U.S. And these things are climbing, and I believe it's because people are continuing to get further and further away from even believing that they rise to the dignity of true identity and true value. Because again, if there is no true north, then we have no value. Value is made up. Value is a contrived, man-made, artificial thing, right? So it's like, wow, we're stripping ourselves of identity, of purpose, of any hope of success, because success demands a definition of purpose, and value itself is missing from the equation. And it's just like, do we anticipate what mess we are creating for ourselves? And so counterfeit is anything deviating from that true north, and it demands that there is a true north, right? And so I don't feign to fully understand what true north is, but I do believe there is a true north. I am working on that. I am pursuing that because I want to understand it better, because by understanding kind of source and origin, I'll also understand myself better. And then I get the pleasure and the privilege of being truer to who I am and expressing who I am more fully. And that is a full life. That is a life that I have found to be very gratifying and fulfilling and truly meaningful. And it just feels so rooted whenever you're pursuing that understanding. So that's what I mean by counterfeit. I see that, to put it in more that's a very almost ethereal expression. But to put it in practical terms, counterfeit leadership is when I see people leading in order to gratify themselves, just to make themselves feel good, look at it, are they serving themselves emotionally? Are they serving themselves, rationally? Are they serving themselves physically, just trying to get pleasure for themselves? Those are the things that indicate to me counterfeit leadership, because I believe true leadership is an expression that focuses on the service of others and creating value in the lives of others. And so anything that deviates from that, I consider that counterfeit. My best understanding of true north, what really is true about leadership, that's deviating from that. And so you see that in a broad expression of things, whether it's greed. Anytime someone operates from fear and lets fear control them, I think that's counterfeit, right? Because I don't think that fear is supposed to control us. I think it's supposed to be data. It's good for us to know, okay, we're afraid. What does that mean? Now I'm going to respond instead of react. I will not be the lizard, right? That just, reacts instinctually to the fear, right? fear might be, it's trying to protect me always, but it may not be effective in doing so. And if I submit to it and let it be king, then I've abdicated my throne in my own self, right? That's what we mean by self-leadership, is I'm the sovereign of myself, and I am not designed to abdicate that to any of the parts of me.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're kind of owning that fight or flight mechanism that's natural in people.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a key part of self-leadership, is learning to honor it. Again, we're all about honor. Honor the fear that you feel. Okay, what does this mean, right? How am I going to respond to this? But it absolutely is, you are still responsible and powerful to be in control of your response in the face of fear.
Gotcha. Okay. You said in one of those videos that you don't want to be a guru.
Yeah.
So I guess what kind of, how do you see yourself for Original Leadership? What is your kind of role, I guess, in the company? If you don't want to be a guru, what kind of role do you see?
Yeah, there's a few things there. One, I see myself as a facilitator, a spearhead.
Okay.
You know, we're getting this thing rolling, we're moving it, and that's something I'm really good at, is spearheading things and kind of leading into new territory. So I see myself as also a facilitator of the development of it and of bringing the right content together, a gatekeeper of who are the influencers that I'm going to allow in, making sure that they are. That's something I really do in any organization that I am part of. Is I'm very good at identifying, is there values alignment here, and are they going to embrace the same things, and are they going to be a kind of person that we can be coherent with, right? We're all about team coherence, right?
Definitely.
So is this the kind of person that is even possible, given their worldview and their values, that we can be coherent with? And so that's an important part of the role that I play. Okay. And then also, I am a leader. I have experiences in my own journey, and like one of the things that we've just started doing. One of the shows we have is it's called Naked Journey, and it's I've been journaling for the last 15 years or so, my journey as a leader and as an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
And so there's over 750 pages of content there, and so it's going through all that content, it's drawing out lessons learned. So that's a special thing that I can offer this network that we're calling Original Leadership. But the key thing is I can be a safeguard for the values that we hold, and to make sure things stay true to who we are. But that doesn't mean that I'm central in the I don't know, the authority on truth and whatever else. I'm learning from the other people that are part of this, that we're going to be inviting in. I'm not the central teacher. Yeah. I'm a safeguard for the DNA of Original Leadership. That's probably a good way to sum that up.
Gotcha. So do you have a certain target market that you are kind of interested in with Original Leadership? And I guess, what is that target market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we mentioned at one point that we're doing a lot of things backwards with this. And target market is one of those things where instead of trying to guess, because the truth is you can lead in any context with the principles of Original Leadership. It can be in your home, it can be in your work, it can be in a nonprofit, it can be whatever, in a career. It can be in any walk of life. And so the question we have is actually to the market, hey, who is this for? Who's hungriest for this? Who is drawing on this most? And so what we've decided to do is put out content that generally expresses, here's what we're about, and then we're going to watch, and we're going to see where the hot spots develop. Who's drawing on this, and we're going to let the market tell us who this is for, and then we can start asking more direct questions of how do we tailor this specifically for this segment and that segment. And so my hope is that in the end, we can hit all the segments, but we want to know which ones we're going to start with. Yeah. And we're listening to the market in order to know where to start.
Okay, excellent. And I guess, is this going to be like a membership or a fee-based? How's that structure going to work once you kind of identify who you're going to target?
Yeah, good question. We started with some ideas on monetization, and we've put all those ideas on the shelf. Okay. Because we want to better understand where this is going to go and how it's going to develop before we start attaching monetization methods to it. Okay. I strongly believe in attaching monetization to it because I want it to be sustainable. Anything that I invest in, I want to be economically sustainable so that I can, if we're creating enough value for others, they should be able to share in some of that value back to us to allow us to sustain and grow the value that we're creating and kind of be partners with us in the value that we're creating. That's kind of what I think about customers, is they're kind of partnering with us in creating value for others in the way we've created value for them.
Definitely.
And so that question is intentionally left unanswered right now.
Okay.
While we get some of the other groundwork laid and learn more about what we're doing here and what direction it's going to go.
Gotcha. Well, I guess the last thing I have here for you, Kurt, is what is I know you've kind of touched on this a little bit roundabout, but what do you see the end goal for this network being?
What we really want is for every person to know and fully express who they really are.
Okay.
That's the end game. Every single person, I want to see them experience that. The more I experience that myself, the more full of joy I am. I mean, I just can't even express how full life can be when you pursue that and experience that. And I just want that goodness for others. I want what I have experienced in my own life to be multiplied into the lives of others. And even those around me that I've been pouring into, we've been walking this together, I've seen it in them. I've seen them break through. I've seen them go, oh, I understand, who I am in this way. And we each get to experience that like layers of the onion, little bits and pieces and extra things where we're like, oh, I just learned this new thing and I've had it wrong, and now I've experienced this new thing. So those advances towards being who we are and living fully and expressing that fully is it's like the most worthy investment I can imagine anyone making is getting that right and getting that right, meaning pursuing that consistently and effectively and seeing that progress. Okay. So yeah, that is the end game 100%. It's there's nothing else like it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, again, Kurt, appreciate you taking some time to sit down with me today.
Appreciate it, Kyle.
Yeah. And we'll be keeping an eye on what's going on.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Thank you.